Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the 1984 cult classic film Nightmare on Elm Street, directed by Wes Craven. Okay, so this came out November 9th, 1984. I forgot that we're doing Friday the 13th and a Nightmare on Elm Street reviews based off of how they were released. So in 1984 we had Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and then we had a Nightmare on Elm Street, which came out November 9th, 1984, directed by Wes Craven. So we're going to go back and forth between the franchises because of how theatrically they came out. So we are introduced to Freddy Krueger. We are introduced to his knife hand. We're introduced to his red and green sweater. We're introduced to Nancy, who's dating Glenn, who's Johnny Depp. We're introduced to Tina, who's dating Rod. And that's the four main characters, right? With Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. So we get a backstory of Freddy Krueger from Nancy's mom, that he was a child murderer. He killed like 20 kids in the neighborhood. The parents got together. They trapped him in this old, warehouse, and he trapped him in a boiler room and set it on fire, and Freddy died, right? And she kept his hat and his glove in their boiler in the basement in their house on Elm Street. So it was strange. Why keep the momentum of the murder weapon of the children? But whatever. So how Freddy got trapped is that he was put on trial, but someone didn't sign some paperwork and didn't get a search warrant, so he was actually released. So it was a dismissed case, despite the fact that he killed 20-something kids. So that's why the parents got together and killed Freddy for the benefit of the neighborhood. We get the comical, funny Freddy Krueger that we know. His arms extend. He makes funny jokes. He's goofy. We have the Rube Goldberg affected traps that Nancy creates within the house. At the end, the sledgehammer coming down, smacking Freddy in the chest. Freddy goes flying down some stairs. We have fired footprints, which is pretty cool. But who is Freddy Krueger? If he's dead and he's not a ghost, how is he a thing? So he's burned, he's got his hat, he's killing people in their dreams. And what's interesting is that when you fall asleep, Freddy can visit you in your dream and, kill you. So how do you avoid Freddy Krueger? How do you make sure that you don't get killed? That's the question. So we have these sleep studies on Nancy. She takes Freddy's hat with her when she wakes up out of the dream. Wes Craven is a genius amongst the horror industry, amongst the film industry in general, and he created a lot of different cool effects on how to do this. So this movie's equal parts funny as it is horrifying, because there's so much gore. It's really violent. It's scary. It's a great horror film. The very first death we see is Tina getting thrown around her bedroom as Rod screaming, "Tina! Tina!" And like blood's getting splattered everywhere, and it's like a really cool inversion trick where you have the set upside down and she's bouncing around on the ceiling, and we see it as bouncing around on the ceiling, but in reality it's just the opposite. And then Johnny Depp's Glenn character getting pulled into his bed, and then this geyser of blood just gushing up into the sky and raining down onto his ceiling. Again, another inversion trick. Rod getting hung in the cell, reverse camera trick of the bed sheet wrapping around his neck, so it's obviously pulled, but it's filmed in reverse. So cool how these effects are going. So it's really neat on the film geek sense of how it goes. So this launched an empire. We have, 8 total Freddy films, something like that? 8 total Nightmare films. I have to double check how many. But, yeah, this is pretty cool. I don't know the time frame. I know with the Friday the 13th movies, I'm trying to get together the appropriate timeline, which I'm figuring out, but I don't know if there's a specific timeline for A Nightmare on Elm Street. I know obviously Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees fight in Freddy vs. Jason, which came out in 2003. But I don't know if this movie takes place in 1984 because it came out in 1984. I don't know, because it didn't give us present day, it didn't give us a timeline, didn't give us 30 years later. It didn't get any of that, so I'm not really certain. So let's go into part 5 of Friday the 13th, and then A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, which is my favorite Friday. I absolutely love Nightmare on Elm Street 2 for various reasons. It's just so awesome, and so funny, but so horrifying as well. Yeah, so, okay, Nightmare on Elm Street. Moving on to the next review. Mucho mahalo.